Don't take us back to town.
Please, mister.
Don't take us back!
What is this? Chains!
The dust storm had been chasing Caleb Ward since noon. By sundown, it had swallowed the whole western sky. The wind dragged sheets of red sand across the flats, scraping at his coat and stinging the narrow strip of skin between his hat brim and neck scarf. His horse kept its head low and moved carefully, feeling for solid ground beneath the shifting dirt. Caleb had lived in the Red Canyon country long enough to know better than to fight a storm like this. You found cover, tied down what you owned, and waited for the land to finish throwing its fit. He was turning toward a line of black rocks when he saw the wagon. At first, it was just a dark shape rolling in and out of the dust. Then the wind cleared for half a second. Caleb pulled hard on the reins. The wagon lay on its side near the mouth of a dry wash. One wheel was broken clean off. The canvas roof had been ripped open, and the words painted along the side were barely visible beneath the dirt. Red Creek School. His horse snorted and backed away. "Easy," Caleb said. He slid from the saddle and wrapped the reins around a dead mesquite branch. The storm pushed against him as he walked toward the wreck. There were no horses, no driver, no bodies. That bothered him more than seeing dead people would have. A wreck in open country usually told its story plain. Broken axle, spooked team, bad turn, dead horse, dead man. This wagon looked like someone had ripped the story apart and carried away the pages. Caleb crouched beside the front bench. There was blood on the wood. Not much. A few dark drops had dried near the edge, then disappeared beneath the sand. He moved around the wagon. The rear door hung from one hinge. Inside, school slates, torn books, and dented lunch tins were scattered across the floor. A little cloth doll had been crushed beneath a bench. Then Caleb saw the chain. It was fastened around the iron leg of the back seat. Not a long chain, not strong enough to hold a horse, just thick enough to hold someone small. He reached down and lifted it. One end had been broken with a rock. Caleb stared at it for a long moment. Then the wind shifted again, blowing sand from the inside wall. There were words written there in black charcoal. "Don't take us back to town." The letters were crooked. A child had written them. Caleb's jaw tightened. He stood and looked out into the storm. The ground around the wagon had been trampled, but the wind was already erasing everything. He found part of a boot print, then the mark of a small, bare foot. Both led toward the dry wash. He went back for his rifle. The Winchester had ridden across his saddle for 20 years. The walnut stock was worn smooth where his hand held it. Caleb checked the chamber, then walked into the wash. The walls rose slowly around him. The storm became quieter there, but the air stayed thick with dust. He followed scraps of cloth caught on stone and small marks in the soft dirt. Half a mile in, he found a child's shoe. It was brown leather with a brass button. He picked it up. Then he heard something. A cough, small, weak. It came from somewhere below him. Caleb stopped. For a few seconds, he heard only the wind moving over the canyon rim. Then another sound, a whisper. "Don't." Caleb looked toward a split in the rock wall. The opening was narrow and partly hidden by fallen brush. He lowered the rifle. "I'm not here to hurt anybody," he called. No answer. He moved closer. A rock flew out of the opening and struck the ground near his boot. Caleb looked down. Then another rock came. This one hit him in the shoulder. "Fair warning," he said. "You throw one more, I'm coming in." A child started crying inside. Someone hushed them. Caleb leaned the rifle against the wall and raised both hands. "My name's Caleb Ward. I live north of here. I found your wagon." Silence. Then a woman's voice answered, "Who sent you?" "Nobody." "Silas Vane?" "I don't work for Silas Vane." "You know him?" "Everybody knows him." The silence after that felt different. Caleb stepped closer to the opening. "I'm coming in slow," he said. "If you've got a gun, keep it pointed at the ground. You stay out. You've got children in there. That's why you stay out." Caleb sighed. "I'm not asking permission." He lowered
We can't
himself
stay
and
here.
squeezed through the crack.
But the children are
The
scared.
space opened
We have
into
to
a
keep
shallow
moving.
cave.
All right.
6 children sat against the back wall. The youngest looked about 5. The oldest might have been 13. Their faces were streaked with dirt. 2 had no shoes. A woman sat in front of them with a revolver in both hands. She was maybe 30, dark hair, gray eyes. Blood covered the left side of her dress. She held the gun steady enough, but her face was pale. "You take another step," she said. "I'll shoot." Caleb looked at the gun. "You fire that in here, half these children won't hear right for a week. I mean it. I know." His eyes moved to the wound. "You're hit. It went through. You sure?" "No." "Then you're not sure." One of the boys stood. "He's got Billy's shoe." Caleb looked down. He was still holding the small leather shoe. A little boy near the wall raised his hand. "That's mine." Caleb tossed it gently. The boy caught it against his chest. The woman kept the gun pointed at Caleb. "What happened to the wagon?" he asked. "No." "No what?" "No questions." "You're bleeding in a cave with 6 children and a dust storm outside. Questions are the only thing I've got." She blinked slowly. Caleb had seen people lose blood before. She was trying to stay strong, but strength was leaking out of her a little at a time. He looked at the children. "You got water?" A girl held up a nearly empty jar. "That all?" The girl nodded. Caleb looked back at the woman. "I've got 2 canteens outside. Food, too. We don't need help." The oldest boy laughed once. It was a tired, angry sound. "Yes, we do." The woman looked back at him. "Samuel." "He can see us," the boy said. "It's too late." Caleb studied the woman. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Mara Bell." "You the school teacher?" "Yes." "Those all your students?" "Yes." "All right, Miss Bell. Here's what happens next. I bring water. I look at that wound. Then you tell me why a school wagon had chains in it." Her face changed, just a little. Fear was still there, but something colder moved behind it. "The chains weren't on the wagon when we left," she said. Caleb waited. She lowered the gun a few inches. "Bring the water." By the time the storm began to weaken, Caleb had built a small fire near the cave entrance. The children ate dried beef and hard biscuits. Nobody talked much. Mara sat with her back against the wall while Caleb cut open the sleeve of her dress. The bullet had passed through the upper arm. The wound was ugly, but it had missed the bone. "You're lucky," Caleb said. "No," Mara answered. "Not yet." He poured whiskey over the wound. She closed her eyes but didn't make a sound. Then he wrapped the arm with clean cloth from his saddlebag. "Who shot you?" "One of Vane's men." "Why?" She looked toward the children. They saw something they weren't supposed to see. Caleb tied the bandage. "What?" Mara didn't answer. The oldest boy did. "Mr. Vane killed our fathers." The cave went quiet. Mara looked at him. "Samuel." "He did." Caleb sat back. "Start at the beginning." Mara pulled her coat tighter around herself. 3 weeks ago, there was a collapse at the Black Crown mine. I heard. 27 men died. Heard that too. It wasn't an accident. Caleb looked at her. Mara reached inside her coat and pulled out a small leather book. The cover was black. The corners were worn. She held it against her chest. This belonged to the mine bookkeeper. He kept a second record. One Vane didn't know about. What's in it? Names, dates, pay withheld from workers, bribes to the sheriff, payments for men who disappeared. She opened the book, and notes about the supports in Tunnel 4. Caleb leaned closer. The collapse? Vane ordered the support beams removed. Why would he do that? The miners were planning to strike. Samuel looked down. My father was helping organize them. Mara turned several pages. The bookkeeper found out. He knew what Vane planned. He tried to warn the men. What happened to him? They found him hanging in the livery stable. One of the younger children started crying. The little girl beside him held his hand. Mara continued. The collapse happened the next morning. Caleb stared into the fire. Outside, the wind still moved through the canyon, but the worst of the storm had passed. How did the children get involved? The mine school sits above the East Ridge, Mara said. That afternoon, we were collecting desert flowers for a lesson. We saw Vane and 2 foremen near the old ventilation road. She looked at Samuel. They were loading bodies into a wagon. Bodies? 3 miners survived the collapse. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Mara nodded. We heard one of them calling for help. What did Vane do? Samuel spoke again. He shot him. No one moved. He shot all 3, the boy said. Then he saw us. Caleb looked at the children. 6 witnesses, small enough for powerful men to ignore, old enough to remember. What did you do? Caleb asked. We ran, Mara said. We got back to the school before dark. I took the book from the bookkeeper's widow. She told me to get it to the territorial governor. And you loaded the children into the school wagon? We were going east. There's a stage station past Red Canyon. How did Vane catch you? At the South Road. Her voice became quiet. He had deputies with him. Sheriff Pike said we were being taken back for questioning. The chains? Mara looked toward the rear of the cave. They put Samuel and Thomas in chains after they tried to run. Caleb's face hardened. Then, the storm came. One of the horses panicked. The wagon turned over. You shot your way out? The driver dropped his gun. Where are the deputies? One was thrown from the wagon. I don't know if he lived. The other went back for help. So Vane knows you're out here. Yes. And he knows you have the book? Yes. Caleb stood. Every child watched him. He picked up his hat. How far can they walk? Mara looked up. Walk where? North. To your home? For tonight. And after that? There's a freight road east of my place. I'll point you toward it. You're not coming? No. Samuel shook his head. They'll find us. Caleb looked at him. Not if you do what I say. My father knew men like Vane, Samuel said. He said they never stop. Caleb put on his hat. Your father was probably right. Mara watched him. Then why help us at all? Caleb looked toward the cave entrance. Because the storm's done, and you've got 6 children sitting in a hole. That isn't an answer. It's enough for tonight. They left before sunrise. The land had changed. The storm had covered old trails and filled the low ground with soft red sand. Caleb placed the 2 smallest children on his horse. The others walked. Mara stayed near the back. She carried the black ledger inside her coat. Caleb kept expecting riders to appear on the ridge. None did. That worried him. Silas Vane owned half the county. The mine, the water station, the sheriff, most of the stores. Men like that didn't hurry because the world usually waited for them. They reached Caleb's place around noon. It wasn't much. A stone house, a barn, a windmill, a fenced garden that had mostly lost its fight with the dry season. The children stopped when they saw it. You live here alone? A girl asked. Yes. Why? Caleb looked at her. Because nobody asks questions. She thought about that. Then she nodded. Inside, the children stared at everything. His old cavalry saddle, a cracked photograph on the shelf, a wooden box filled with brass buttons. The youngest boy found a carved horse near the fireplace. Caleb took it from him. That's not a toy. It looks like a toy. It isn't. What is it? Caleb put it back. Something I kept. The boy frowned. That means it's a toy. Mara almost smiled. Caleb noticed. He didn't like that he noticed. He sent the children to the well and checked Mara's wound. Her fever was rising. You need rest, he said. We need to keep moving. You fall off your feet. They don't get anywhere. She looked through the window. What route do we take east? You follow the dry river for 10 miles, then cut south toward the freight road. How long? 2 days. And Vane? He'll expect you to run east. So, where should we go? Caleb looked at her. I said I'd point the way. You also said men like him don't stop. I said the boy's father was probably right. Mara stepped closer. You know this country. We don't. That's not my problem. You brought us here. For one night, she studied his face. You're afraid. Caleb laughed. Of Vane? No. She looked toward the shelf, at the cracked photograph. Of them. Caleb followed her eyes. The picture showed a woman and a little girl. It had been taken 17 years earlier. He turned the photograph face down. You should sleep, he said. Mara didn't push. That made it worse. The first gunshot came just before sunset. It echoed from the barn. Caleb grabbed his rifle and ran outside. Smoke rose beyond the fence. His horse screamed. 3 riders moved across the southern ridge. One carried a burning torch. The barn roof caught fast. Dry wood, old hay. Within seconds, flames rolled through the doorway. Get the children out the back, Caleb shouted. Mara pulled them toward the north side of the house. A bullet broke the kitchen window. Glass scattered across the floor. Caleb fired through the doorway. One rider fell from his horse. The others turned away. Then more men appeared. 5, maybe 6. They spread out across the ridge. Caleb knew the shape of a hunting line. They weren't trying to rush the house. They were closing every way out. He ran to the well. The children crouched behind the stone wall. Where's Billy? Mara asked. Everyone looked around. The little boy was gone. Billy! Samuel shouted. Caleb grabbed his shoulder. Quiet. He was in the barn, one girl said. Caleb looked toward the flames. No. Mara grabbed his coat. You can't. He pulled away. The north fence. There's a dry ditch behind it. Take the others there. What about you? Move. He ran toward the barn. Heat hit him 20 feet from the door. The roof groaned. Billy! No answer. He covered his face and went inside. The smoke was thick. A burning beam crashed behind him. The horse stalls were empty except for one dead animal. Then he heard crying. Under the workbench. Caleb dropped to his knees. Billy had crawled beneath it. He was holding the carved wooden horse. You stole that, Caleb said. Billy shook his head. You left it. The roof cracked. Caleb grabbed him. They ran. The barn collapsed as they cleared the door. A bullet struck the dirt near Caleb's foot. He fired from the hip. The rider on the ridge ducked. Then Caleb carried Billy toward the ditch. His house was burning now, the windmill too. Everything he owned was catching fire. Mara waited behind the north wall. When Caleb reached them, she took Billy and held him tight. You came back, Billy said. Caleb looked at the burning house. Don't make me regret
Stay close,
it.
the path is treacherous.
They escaped through
The
the
children
ditch
are
after
weary.
dark.
We press
Caleb
on.
led them north first, then west. then south through a narrow cut in the rocks. He made the older children drag branches behind them to disturb their tracks. By midnight, they reached the edge of Red Canyon. The moon lit the cliffs in pale silver. The canyon dropped away below them, miles of twisted stone, dry riverbeds, black shadows. Mara stood beside Caleb. "Where now?" He pointed. "Through there. You said the freight road was east." "It is." "That's west." "I know. Why?" "Because Vane thinks we're going east." She stared into the canyon. "What's west?" "Trouble," Samuel overheard. "What kind?" Caleb looked at him. "The kind that might keep us alive. The first day in the canyon nearly killed them. The sun rose hard and white. There was no shade except beneath narrow shelves of rock. By noon, the children had stopped talking. Caleb rationed the water. 2 mouthfuls each. No more. Billy complained until Caleb made him carry an empty canteen. "What's this for?" Billy asked. "So you remember how heavy a full one is." "That doesn't make sense. Most useful lessons don't." Mara walked beside them. Her injured arm was stiff. "You're good with children," she said. "No, you are. I tell them what to do. They complain. That's most of teaching." Caleb looked at her. "You talk too much. That's also teaching." He almost smiled. Then they heard thunder. Everyone stopped. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. The sound came again. Low, rolling. Caleb looked north. His face changed. "Get off the riverbed." Mara turned. "What?" Now. They were walking through a dry wash between high canyon walls. Caleb grabbed Billy and lifted him onto his shoulder. "Climb." The older children scrambled toward the rocks. Mara looked upstream. A dark wall moved between the canyon bends. Water, mud, broken branches, a flash flood. The storm that hit the western hills had filled every channel. The water was coming fast. Caleb pushed the children toward a narrow ledge. Samuel climbed first and pulled the younger ones up. Mara tried to follow. Her injured arm gave out. She fell. The flood rounded the bend. Caleb grabbed her around the waist. "Hold on. I can climb." "No, you can't." He pushed her against the wall and lifted. Samuel caught her good hand. Together they pulled her onto the ledge. Caleb climbed last. The flood hit. Brown water filled the riverbed. It carried logs, dead brush, and pieces of fence. The sound was bigger than thunder. The children pressed against the wall. Billy looked down. That was dry. "Not anymore," Caleb said. They waited 3 hours. When the water dropped, half their trail had vanished. So had one of the supply bags. Caleb watched it disappear downstream. "How much food?" Mara asked. 2 days. "How far are we going?" 3. She let out a breath. "That sounds bad." "It isn't good." They continued after sunset. The canyon became cooler. The children found energy again. Billy walked beside Caleb. "Did you have a boy?" "No." "A girl?" Caleb didn't answer. Billy looked up. "The picture?" "Yes." "What was her name?" Caleb kept walking. "Anna." "Where is she?" "Gone." "Where?" Caleb stopped. The others moved ahead. Billy waited. "Some questions aren't yours to ask," Caleb said. Billy lowered his head. "All right." Caleb took 2 steps. Then he sighed. "She died." Billy looked at him. "How?" "Fever." "Did you come back for her?" The question landed harder than it should have. Caleb looked toward Mara and the children. "No," he said. "Why?" "I was in the war." "Did you know she was sick?" "No." "Then it wasn't your fault." Caleb stared at the boy. Children said things because they didn't understand how heavy words could be. Sometimes that made them true. "Keep walking," Caleb said. On the second night, they found water beneath a limestone wall. Caleb showed the children how to dig where cottonwood roots entered the ground. At first, there was only damp sand. Then a shallow pool formed. The children cheered. "Quiet," Caleb said. They became quiet. Then they laughed quietly. Even Caleb couldn't stop them. Mara sat near the pool. Her face was hot. Caleb touched her forehead. "You're burning up." "I'm fine." "That's a lie. I'm a teacher. We lie professionally." He cleaned the wound again. The skin around it was red. "You need a doctor." "Do you have one in your pocket?" "No." "Then keep walking." Caleb sat beside her. The children slept under blankets nearby. "You never told me where we're going," Mara said. He looked toward the dark cliffs. "There's an old telegraph station above the western ridge." Her eyes opened wider. "Telegraph?" "Used to connect the mine towns to Fort Mason." "Used to?" "Line was abandoned 6 years ago." "Then why go there?" "The station still has wire." "Does it work?" "Maybe." "Maybe?" "I haven't been there in 4 years." Mara laughed once. "You led 6 children into a canyon for a maybe?" "I led them away from 8 armed men." "You could have mentioned the maybe. You would have argued." "I'm arguing now." "Too late." She looked at him. "What happens if it works?" "We send the ledger information to the governor." "And if it doesn't?" Caleb checked his rifle. "Then we make Vane climb." The next afternoon, they found a dead horse. It lay near the trail. Fresh blood darkened the rocks. Caleb crouched beside it. Mara watched. "Vane?" "No." "How do you know?" "This horse came from the south." He pointed at hoof marks. "Someone else is ahead of us." Samuel looked toward the ridge. "Who?" Caleb stood. "I don't know." Then a rifle clicked behind them. "Hands up." Caleb raised both hands. A man stepped from the rocks. He wore a torn miner's coat. His beard was gray with dust. 2 others appeared. One had a bandage around his head. The other carried a shotgun. "You Ward?" the first man asked. "Yes." "You took the teacher?" "She came willingly." Mara stepped forward. "Eli?" The man looked at her. His face broke. "Miss Bell." Samuel ran toward him. Eli caught the boy. For the first time since leaving the cave, Samuel cried. Not quietly, not like a frightened child. He cried like he had been holding it inside for days. Eli held him. "Your pa was a good man," he said. "I saw Vane kill them." "I know." More miners came from the rocks, 7 in all. Survivors. Men who had left Black Crown after the collapse. Mara showed them the ledger. They gathered around. Some found names they knew. Brothers, fathers, friends. One man removed his hat. "What are you doing out here?" Caleb asked. "Looking for her," Eli said. "How'd you know?" "The bookkeeper's widow told us." "Vane's behind us." "We know." "You armed?" "Some." "Enough?" Eli looked toward the canyon. "No." Caleb nodded. "The telegraph station." Eli frowned. "Line's dead." "Maybe not all of it." "You think you can send something?" "I think we find out." They reached the western ridge near dusk. The telegraph station sat on a narrow shelf above the canyon. A wooden building, a tall signal pole, a water tank, and one bridge. The bridge crossed a deep cut in the mountain. No other trail reached the station. The children stopped. Billy stared down. "I don't like that." "You don't have to," Caleb said. "Just cross." The bridge creaked under their weight. Half the boards were cracked. The canyon below dropped 200 feet. One by one they made it across. Caleb went last. He looked back at the eastern ridge. Small shapes moved near the horizon. Riders. Vane was coming. Inside the station, dust covered everything. The telegraph key still sat on the desk. Wire hung from the wall. Mara touched it. Can it work? Caleb looked at the old battery jars. Not like this. Samuel picked up one. It's dry. We need acid. The miners searched the building. They found tools, copper wire, old railroad batteries, nothing useful. Then one of the girls held up a jar. What's this? Caleb smelled it. Vinegar. Mara looked at him. Will that work? Not well, but maybe. She smiled. You do enjoy that word. They worked through the night. Caleb repaired the line inside the building. Mara organized the children. They cleaned metal plates, cut wire, filled jars. The miners strengthened the windows. Eli checked ammunition. Near midnight, the telegraph clicked once. Everyone froze. Then, nothing. Mara leaned over the key. Again. Samuel touched two wires together. Click. The children cheered. Caleb shook his head. That only means the machine has power. Can it send? Mara asked. Need to test the line. He tapped the key. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. They waited. No answer. Mara looked at him. Again. He tried. Nothing. The line outside had to be broken. I'll follow it, Caleb said. Mara stood. In the dark? Better than daylight. I'm coming. No. You need someone to test the key. Samuel can. You need someone who knows Morse. Caleb looked at her. You know Morse? I taught it. Why? Because children get bored. He handed her a coat. They followed the wire along the cliff. Half a mile from the station, they found the break. A pole had fallen into a ravine. The wire hung 20 feet above the ground. Caleb climbed. Mara held the lantern low. You ever do this before? She asked. No. Comforting. Stop talking. You're upside down over a ravine. I'm helping. The wire was too short. Caleb tied on a spare section. His fingers were numb. Mara watched the eastern ridge. I see lights. How many? 6. More. 10. Caleb finished the connection. Go. They returned to the station. The children waited. Mara sat at the key. Caleb stood beside her. Send to Fort Mason, he said. What? Urgent. Black Crown Mine murders. Request federal marshal. She began tapping. The room became silent. Click, click, pause, click. The message moved into the wire. Names, dates, the collapse, the witnesses, Silas Vane. Mara sent everything she could. Then the machine clicked back. One word. Received. Nobody spoke. Then Samuel laughed. The sound spread. Children, miners, even Mara. Caleb looked out the window. Torches moved toward the bridge. They know where we are, he said. The laughter stopped. Eli picked up his rifle. How long until help? Fort Mason is 80 miles away. So tomorrow? Maybe. Eli looked at him. That word again. Caleb loaded his rifle. Get used to it. Silas Vane arrived before dawn. He didn't rush the bridge. He sent 2 men forward. Caleb fired into the boards near their feet. They ran back. Then Vane called across the canyon. Miss Bell! His voice echoed against the rock. Mara stood inside the station. Don't answer, Caleb said. Vane called again. I know you can hear me. Caleb looked through the window. Silas Vane stood beneath a torch. Tall, clean black coat, white hat. He looked like a man arriving at a business meeting. 20 armed men waited behind him. Send the children across, Vane said. You too. Nobody has to die. Mara stepped outside. Caleb caught her arm. Stay behind the wall. She moved beside him. You put chains on children. she shouted. Vane smiled. For their safety. You murdered their fathers. Careful. We sent the ledger. The smile disappeared. To who? Fort Mason. Vane looked at the telegraph pole. Then he raised a hand. A rifle fired. The wire snapped. Mara flinched. Vane smiled again. No more messages. Caleb leaned close. One was enough. Vane heard him. Ward. Caleb stepped into view. I burned your ranch, Vane said. I noticed. You lost everything. Caleb looked toward the children inside. Not everything. Vane's expression hardened. You don't know what you stepped into. I know exactly. You think a book changes anything? Yes. Sheriff belongs to me. Federal marshal doesn't. Governor owes me money. Newspapers don't. Vane laughed. Men believe power, not teachers. Mara stepped forward. Then why are you here with 20 guns? The miners smiled. Vane did not. He lowered his hand. The shooting started. Bullets tore through the station walls. Glass exploded. Caleb pushed Mara inside. The miners fired from the windows. The narrow bridge became a killing ground. Vane's men rushed in groups. Caleb shot the first. Eli dropped the second. The rest fell back. Smoke filled the canyon. The children hid behind the water tank. Samuel loaded rifles. Mara carried ammunition. Hours passed. The sun rose. The heat climbed. By noon, 3 miners were wounded. One was dead. Caleb's rifle barrel was too hot to touch. Vane's men started building cover on the bridge. Boards, saddles, bodies. They moved closer. We can't hold another rush, Eli said. Caleb looked toward the canyon. How much powder? 2 sticks of blasting dynamite. From the mine? Eli nodded. Caleb pointed at the bridge. No. Mara understood. You're going to destroy it. If they cross, we're done. What if help comes? They'll find another way. There isn't another way. Then they'll build one. She stared at him. You're making us prisoners. I'm keeping them alive. He took the dynamite. Mara grabbed his hand. Caleb. He looked at her. You don't have to keep going back into fires. He knew what she meant. The barn, the war, his daughter, every place he had arrived too late. This time I do, he said. He crawled beneath the bridge. Bullets struck the boards above him. He tied the dynamite to the center support. Then he lit the fuse. The flame hissed. Caleb climbed. A bullet hit the railing. Another tore through his coat. He reached the station side. The explosion shook the ridge. The center of the bridge broke. Wood fell into the canyon. Half the crossing remained on Vane's side, half on theirs. A 30-foot gap opened between. Everyone became quiet. Vane stood at the broken edge. Caleb faced him across the canyon. You're done, Caleb said. Vane looked behind him, then up. A narrow maintenance cable still crossed above the bridge. One man could climb it, maybe. Vane pointed. His men shook their heads. You first, one said. Vane turned. What? You want the teacher. You cross. The men stared at him. For the first time, Silas Vane looked alone. Then he raised his pistol. You work for me. No, the man said. You pay us. The difference hung in the air. Vane shot him. The man fell. After that, nobody argued. Vane made them tie ropes to the cable. One by one, they began crossing. Caleb fired. The first man dropped. The others kept coming. There were too many. By late afternoon, 6 had reached the station side. Then 10. The fighting moved into the rocks. Close, loud, ugly. Eli fell with a bullet in his leg. Caleb pulled him behind the wall. Mara fired through a window. Samuel handed her cartridges. Stay down, she told him. No, you're 13. My father was in that book. She looked at him, then gave him another rifle. Vane crossed last. He climbed the cable with a rope around his waist. 2 men pulled him from the station side. When his boots touched rock, he smiled. The shooting slowed. Most of the miners were wounded. Caleb had 1 bullet left. Vane knew it. "Bring out the teacher!" he shouted. Nobody answered. "Bring her out, or I burn the station." Mara stood. Caleb grabbed her. "No, he won't stop. He doesn't have to," Billy screamed. Everyone turned. One of Vane's men had climbed behind the water tank. He held Billy against his chest. A knife pressed to the boy's neck. "Drop the rifle," Vane said. Caleb aimed. The man hid behind Billy. "Drop it." Caleb lowered the rifle. "Kick it away." He did. Vane walked forward. Dust covered his black coat. Blood stained one sleeve. But the smile had returned. "You should have stayed alone, Ward." Caleb said nothing. Vane looked at Mara. "And you." She stepped out. The ledger was in her hand. "Give me the book." "No." He raised his pistol toward Billy. Mara held up the ledger. "You want it?" "Yes." "Then listen." She opened it. "What are you doing?" "Reading." Vane laughed. "To who?" Mara looked at the men around him. "To them." She read the first name. Jacob Turner. One of Vane's gunmen looked up. "That was my brother." Mara read the date beside it. Payment made to Sheriff Pike after Jacob Turner disappeared. The man stared at Vane. "Keep reading," someone said. Vane raised his pistol. "Shut up." Mara read another name. Thomas Reed. A miner spoke. "My cousin." "Listed as killed in a mine accident," Mara said. $300 paid to Dr. Vale to change the report. Vane walked toward her. "Give me the book." She stepped back. Matthew Cole. The man holding Billy froze. "My father." Mara looked at him. "Your father found silver on land Vane wanted." "That's a lie." Payment recorded to 2 men, $50 each. The man looked at Vane. "Mr. Vane, don't listen. Did you kill my father? He stole from me." The man lowered the knife. Billy ran. Caleb caught him. Vane fired. The bullet struck the dirt. Then everyone raised guns. Not at Caleb. At Vane. He turned slowly. Men who had followed him for years looked back with doubt, then anger. Mara continued reading. Names, payments, burned homes, broken strikes, missing workers. Each page removed another piece of Silas Vane's power. He had ruled because every man thought he was alone. The ledger showed them they weren't. Vane raised his pistol toward Mara. Caleb moved. He crossed the space before Vane could fire. They hit the ground. The pistol went off. Caleb felt heat tear across his ribs. He ignored it. Vane struck him with the gun. Caleb grabbed his wrist. They rolled through the dirt. Vane was younger, faster. Caleb was stronger. He drove his forehead into Vane's face. Bone broke. Vane screamed. Caleb took the pistol. He stood. Vane crawled backward. "Wait!" Caleb aimed. Vane held up both hands. "I can pay you." Caleb looked at the burned edge of his coat. "My house is gone. I'll build another." "My horse is dead. I'll buy 10. Caleb looked toward Billy. "No." Vane's voice shook. "What do you want?" Caleb stepped closer. "Nothing you own." The sound of hoofbeats came from the eastern ridge. Everyone turned. A line of riders appeared. Federal marshals. Behind them came miners from Black Crown. Dozens. Men with rifles. Men carrying the names Mara had sent through the wire. Vane stared. No. The lead marshal crossed the remaining cable with help from the miners. He held up a paper. Silas Vane. Vane backed away. "You have no authority here." I have enough. The sheriff is under arrest. The governor? Read the ledger. Vane looked at Mara. For the first time, there was fear in his eyes. Not fear of dying, fear of being known. The marshal put him in chains, the same kind used in the school wagon. Vane looked down at them. You can't do this. Samuel stepped forward. Yes, he said, they can. The sun was setting when they carried the wounded from the station. Caleb sat against the water tank. Mara cleaned the bullet graze along his ribs. You're lucky, she said. No. She looked at him. Not yet. He nodded. She wrapped the bandage. Nearby, the children watched Vane cross what remained of the bridge. He was tied to a rope. The miners pulled him across slowly. Nobody spoke to him. Nobody looked afraid. Billy sat beside Caleb. He still held the carved horse. You stole that again, Caleb said. Billy shook his head. You left it again. Caleb looked at the toy, then at the boy. Keep it. Billy smiled. Really? Yes. What if I lose it? Then you lose it. What if I break it? Then you fix it. Billy held it carefully. Was it Anna's? Caleb nodded. I'll take care of it. I know. 3 months later, Red Creek had a new school. It stood near the river, where cottonwood trees gave shade. The building was small. The roof leaked. The front door leaned to one side. But every morning, children filled the room. Mara taught reading, numbers, history, and Morse code. Samuel helped the younger students. Billy kept the wooden horse on the corner of his desk. Caleb repaired fences, fixed windows, built shelves. He said he was leaving every week. Nobody believed him. The Black Crown mine reopened under new owners. The workers elected their own foreman. Silas Vane stood trial in Fort Mason. The ledger became evidence in 27 murder cases. Newspapers printed every name. People who had once whispered about Vane now told stories out loud. One evening, Mara found Caleb behind the school. He was raising a new telegraph pole. You know, she said, most school caretakers don't build communication systems. I'm not the caretaker. What are you? I'm leaving. When? Soon. You said that last month. I meant it. Billy ran from the school. Caleb, the wire moved. Caleb climbed down. What? The telegraph clicked. They hurried inside. The children gathered around the machine. Samuel held a piece of paper. What did it say? Mara asked. He smiled. Message from Fort Mason. Well, Samuel read. Silas Vane found guilty. The room became loud. Children cheered. Some cried. Mara closed her eyes. Caleb stood near the doorway. He looked outside. The sun dropped behind Red Canyon. The sky turned gold. For years, he had believed surviving meant keeping distance. No promises, no people, no place that could be taken from him. But the children filled the room behind him. Mara stood beside the telegraph. Billy held Anna's wooden horse. And for once, Caleb didn't feel the need to leave before morning. Mara walked over. You still going? He looked at the road. Then back at the school. No, she smiled. Good. The telegraph clicked again. Billy ran toward it. What does it say? Samuel listened. Then he laughed. It says, Message received. Caleb looked around the room, at the patched walls, the crooked desks, the children who had crossed the canyon, the teacher who had carried the truth, the people who had refused to stay afraid. Outside, the evening wind moved gently through the cottonwoods. No dust storm, no gunfire, just the sound of a new place learning how to live. And for the first time in a long time, Caleb Ward stayed where he was.